Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I want to share with you my top 10 study tips. But before I start, I'm very sorry about the noise if you can hear it. The construction workers outside of my window have been working on something that I don't see. I don't know what they're doing since September, and they're driving me insane. So if you hear the noise, I'm very sorry. So let's get into it. My first tip is study in the subway. First of all, if you don't take a subway or if you drive, do take a subway. It's the best time for you to study. If you have a commute, this is the time that would be otherwise wasted. And the subway, especially the subway, I lived in Moscow, and my commute was 6 hours a day, 3 hours there and 3 hours back, sometimes more if I had to travel between hospitals. And this time was precious for me because the noise in the subway just cancels out every other thought I had, and I could fully focus on the book I was reading. And this is the time that I probably have learned the most. I was my most focused because I knew that when I didn't have to do it when I came home. When I was going home from school and I was dreading my homework, I knew I could do it in the subway. And I mastered my studying skills to like absolute top level. I was writing conspects in the subway while standing. I was just doing my best job. And I remember writing I had a crazy teacher for my the otorhinolaryngology class, and we had to write tons of conspect. I basically rewrote the whole book, and I did most of it in the subway. Public transportation is a place where people don't usually talk to each other. You're usually there alone, people don't distract you, and you have nothing better to do. Instead of listening to the music or just scrolling your Instagram, read your book. My second study tip is make written notes. When you read a book, when you read your textbook, always make notes. Even if it's, some people I would hear, and even I myself would say that I'm not a conspect kind of person. I don't like making notes. I will just remember it. And it turns out that when you read your own handwriting, the information just sinks in better because you recognize your own style. And besides just reading the text, you add the additional information outlet. You write, and your muscles remember the writing process, and this helps you to kind of solidify the information in your brain. And I don't really know the science behind it. I heard about it a lot, I've been told about it a lot, but legitimately when you read your own notes, it was the best way for me to remember them. I would make a little drawings on pages, and I would remember exactly how my writing looked. I would come to the exam and I would remember exactly how the page of my copybook looked. And this helped me tremendously. Just textbook for me was very dry. Information was black and white, typed, it all looks the same. But when you have a handwritten text, you would write it in different parts of the page. You would make it a little, something to catch your mind, to return yourself to the page. And it was the best way I could remember information. The next tip I have is very straightforward, and make flashcards. Everybody makes flashcards, but I was kind of against it, and I couldn't buy flashcards. Like in Russia, we don't really sell the flashcards that you can buy here, and it was just a pain for me to just cut paper, and I didn't want to do that, and I didn't have flashcards during my studying in dental school, but now I do, and studying for NBDE, it's the best help. But my approach to flashcards is I don't make too many of them, and I only make flashcards for something that I know I would not remember. So like for me, it's biochemical processes, mostly it's biochemistry, or something that I know that I wouldn't remember just by reading it. I need to read it multiple times, and it's a good fast way for you to return to your information. And it's mostly advice for me because I didn't do it when I was in school, but now I think it's amazing. But besides, I see a lot of flashcards online. There are tons of apps for making flashcards, which did not work for me at all. And returning back to my previous tips, make written notes. you can totally see the difference when you read even the flashcards, so the tiny piece of information in the app, and when you read your handwritten flashcard, you can see the difference, because I could not remember anything I read in the app, and where written flashcard makes the whole difference. I actually remember stuff that I couldn't remember for 5 years of dental school. So if you don't do flashcards, or if you think you're not a flashcard kind of person, try it out, because I think it's an amazing way to learn. Tip number 4 is get a study buddy. And again, everybody says it, get a study buddy. Study groups is amazing. When you read and speak to other person, you will remember better. And yeah, that's true, but I never had a study buddy because I lived so far away from school. I could not join a study group. And what I did back in dental school, I would just come to school before my exam or my test, and I will find some classmate, my friend, and I would be like, okay, listen, I'm telling you everything I know about the subject, go. And I would just list everything I remembered, and she didn't really give much input. She would just listen, and probably she would remember it. It's my best friend Yulia from high school, from dental school. And I would just tell her everything I knew about the subject, everything I could remember, and if I forgot something, she would tell me what she remembered, and it was kind of exchange of information, and it was like a quick pit stop before the exam, because we didn't sit down, we didn't study for like hours in a study group, we didn't meet up, we just came, and this was the quickest, the fastest way to repeat everything you can before the exam, is to tell it to somebody. It also works other way around. When you come to exam and you don't know anything, you ask somebody, okay, what do you know? Tell me. And you kind of try to quickly pack everything they saying to you into your brain. And this is kind of a fast way to learn what you didn't have time to learn before. When it comes to study groups, I kind of have negative opinion about it. I never was part of it, so I don't really know how maybe that works for other people. I don't know the dynamics of it, but when I study with somebody else, when I'm originally studying from scratch, when I haven't read in any of my conspects, and I'm like studying with my husband and he reads the flashcards and I have to answer, I just don't work like that. I can't, this other person distracts me. I need my own time. I need to sit down and focus, and in study group you just can't do that because there are other people who you have to explain stuff, and I just don't think it's very effective. I think you need your own time to really consume the information by yourself. Another study tip that I used since I was literally like 3, when I had to study, when I have to memorize like poems for middle school, I would just read them once before I go to sleep. When you sleep, the information in your brain keeps repeating itself, and when you wake up fresh, you read it one more time and you know it perfectly. In dental school, I did it with like small stuff when I was preparing for class, so it doesn't really work for exam because the amount of information, even if you start reading in the morning, you would not be done by the time you go to sleep. So it's like the amount of flash quizzes or something small that you need to study for your class, like a small paragraph or some concept or a process in biochemistry, which is my biggest problem. I hate biochemistry. You can read once before you go to sleep, and then once more when you wake up and go to school. And trust me, you will remember it like you read it a million times before. It's the most effective way to study small amounts of information.